Hi everyone, we're going to walk through an MLG product called a tiered assessment. We're going to be looking at the criteria for submitting an MLG tiered assessment that is proficient or potentially masterful. The criteria that we're using to decide or determine whether your tiered assessment is proficient is the following. Focuses on one learning target or the learning target for each problem or question is clearly labeled. States a proficient learning target on the assessment. Includes activities and questions that correlate to the rigor of the standard. Clarifies what a student must do to demonstrate proficiency. States next steps for students who do not demonstrate proficiency. Details procedures for retakes, re-engagement, or correctives. So now let's look at some examples for each of these criteria. Focuses on one learning target or the learning target for each problem or question is clearly labeled. In this example, the teacher has decided that their tiered assessment will focus on this one learning target. They're going to have students analyze and interpret data to see if a chemical reaction has occurred between substances. This means that every tier and every item within that tier in this tiered assessment is going to relate to this one individual learning target. In this example, the teacher is demonstrating that they have a learning target for each tier. A level 2 or approaching is that the student will be able to determine the theme using key details from the text. But the level 3, which is proficient, is different. If you'd like at any point in time, please pause the video to look at the contents of the screen with more detail. In this example, the teacher has also decided that the learning target for each problem or question will be labeled, as each different tier has a different learning target. This just means that the teacher has decided to take their overall learning target and they've broken it down into different phases of learning. So for example, at the level 1 or beginning stage, a student will be able to justify a solution. They can solve equations with variables on one side. In their level 2 or approaching tier, the student is now able to solve equations with variables on both sides. The next criteria is stating a proficient learning target on the assessment. A proficient learning target is going to address the following criteria that you see on your screen. Now, in short, the learning targets are bundled standards. So grade level standards that have been clustered together to communicate in a student and parent-friendly language what the learning expectation is. Here are some examples of proficient learning targets that are on tiered assessments. These learning targets are including the standards for which they are connected to. This ensures that the learning targets are grade level appropriate and content specific. The next criteria is including activities or questions that correlate to the rigor of the standard. Here the teacher has identified a description of what level 1 understanding means. In this case, it's knowing what the digestive system is and correctly being able to label some organs. You'll notice that the items that are found in the level 1 directly connect to those expectations. In this other example, the teacher has included 3 separate tiers: a basic understanding, a significant understanding, and an approaching mastery level. Again, the contents of each of these tiers or levels corresponds appropriately to those expectations. In this example, the level 1 or beginning includes a description of what the student is able to do and you'll notice that the problems that are included in that tier directly align to those expectations. Moving on to the level 2, while the rigor increases for that expectation, and that is evident through the description in the learning target, the items in this level also align to those expectations. The next criteria clarifies what a student must do to demonstrate proficiency. In this example, the teacher is communicating that to be a level 3 proficient, the student must accurately solve or answer items 1, 2, and 3 on the assessment. In this example, the teacher is communicating to the student that they are to demonstrate or complete successful achievement on level 3 or above. In this example, the teacher is describing what the student is able to do in order to reach proficiency. Notice that in this example, the teacher is saying that the student can look at any 3-digit number and tell what each number's value is. This means that in this tiered assessment, the teacher is not looking for written evidence, but they are describing the evidence they are looking for. Finally, for a proficient tiered assessment, it must state next steps for students who do not demonstrate proficiency. It may detail procedures for retakes, re-engagement, or correctives. In this example, the teacher has included a column called Next Steps. If the student scores 0, no evidence, then their next steps include to make an action plan. If the student scores a level 1 or a level 2, the teacher then indicates that corrective assignments will be necessary. These can be done as homework, and there can be opportunities for retakes during class time or tutoring. They also include next steps for those students who scored 3 and above. In this example, the teacher has included a section in the assessment where they will be filling in feedback. If the student scores a 1 or a 2, which is not yet proficient, you'll notice that they are providing a series of assignments that the student may engage in order to support their growth. Optionally, they include enrichment opportunities if the student scores a 3, and a differentiated enrichment opportunity if the student scores a 4. In this example, the teacher is providing recovery questions. Now let's walk through a few examples of criteria that will result in a masterful tiered assessment submission. A mastery level tiered assessment will meet all proficient criteria plus one of the following. Provide students with choices, such as variety of media, regarding how they will demonstrate proficiency. Encourages students on their path to proficiency by encouraging them to take agency over their learning. Offer students choices to determine at what level of proficiency they will enter the assessment. We will look at one example of how this teacher may provide students with choices. In this example, the teacher is providing opportunities for a variety of media. The students will have an opportunity to enter information in written or text form, but they will also have the opportunity to engage in a video and listen to some songs to analyze or identify theme. The next example encourages students on their path to proficiency. Here, the teacher is outlining that if the score for this learning target is a 1 or a 2, the student is invited to make corrections directly on this test paper, and they can include an analysis of incorrect answers. They can schedule a retest within the next 10 days. If the student instead scores a 3, they can make corrections directly on this test paper and include an analysis of incorrect answers to reach the 4. Offer students choices to determine at what level of proficiency they will enter the assessment. In this example, the teacher states that after reading the guidelines for proficiency, a student can decide where they choose to begin this test. They can go up or down a level depending on their level of comfort. Please take a moment to analyze your own tiered assessment against these examples and criteria before submitting your proficient or masterful MLG product.